about the different faculty then that you worked with. So give me some names of folks that that you collaborated with, that really that had an impact on you in your practice.
Well, number one, and the most profound, was Dorothy Tupper, because she had an innate interest in gerontology.
Mm-hmm.
And as a practicing nurse, she and I was still thinking maternal child health
mm-hmm.
as a student,
mm-hmm.
but the minute I got to the local nursing home as the director of nursing, we were colleagues. And that I remained a friend and co-worker
mm-hmm.
of hers
mm-hmm.
until she died.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I progressed to Ivinson Hospital
mm-hmm.
and we had our end-of-life room,
mm-hmm.
Dorothy was very involved
mm-hmm.
in hospice and caring for people that had
mm-hmm.
end-of-life issues, and she totally, I owe her so much. The second, I think, was Sharon Humanek, because Sharon was a researcher, and because she was looking to mentor and grow
mm-hmm.
young nurses who
mm-hmm.
had lots of energy. You know how new grads are just, they have so much energy and so much ways of looking and
mm-hmm.
thinking about improving things. And
mm-hmm.
Sharon
mm-hmm.
saw that in many nurses.
Uh-huh.
And so it was amazing to work with her. I just can't tell you. The next one that I would talk about is probably Elizabeth Nichols, who was the dean
yes.
later down the way. And
yes.
Elizabeth was the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And I still see and talk to her occasionally. And
okay.
she and Betty Ide, who worked with me when I was working on my master's, the two of them
mm-hmm.
together co-published my thesis. And
okay.
my thesis was published in the Texas, gosh, I can't even think of the name of the journal now, but they helped me because my thesis was on internal and external locus of control in people, and
mm-hmm.
they both worked with me, and we co-published
mm-hmm.
that in the Texas Journal of Health.
So so at some point, did you do a master's?
I did.
And with a thesis?
Yes.
Because this is something that I think we need to go back to, is having a master's with a thesis.
Mm-hmm.
When was that? At what point? So you were the director of the nursing home, and then what happened?
Then I went to Ivinson Hospital. I decided I wanted a master's degree in nursing.
They had started while you were at the nursing home.
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so. It might have been a bit before that. I honestly can't tell you when it started,
mm-hmm.
but I can tell you that they were looking for students,
mm-hmm.
and I thought, what an advantage. I had
mm-hmm.
started at Ivinson Hospital. They had the nursing home while I was there
uh-huh.
went from 118 beds to 100 and I think we had 140. We expanded,
mm-hmm.
and the job was
mm-hmm.
very, very time consuming and difficult. And I was looking at things like research
mm-hmm.
and wanting to increase my leadership skills,
mm-hmm.
I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to go and do my master's. So I applied and was accepted into the program. And as part of that, I said, I can't work as the director of a 144 bed nursing home because it was a challenge. It is a challenge to work in a nursing home. So they had just opened a skilled nursing facility at Ivinson.
Okay.
And they had some issues, and they were looking for someone to come and work that had some experience. And one of the nurses at Ivinson was also a friend. The director of the emergency department was a friend of mine.
Okay.
And she said, "You need to come up here. Let me get you an appointment." And I looked at it and I said, "You know, I'll have some time. I can work on my master's." So that's how that happened.
And did you go into a leadership role?
I did. Leadership and management is what I, adult health and leadership.
And is that unit still around today at Ivinson?
You know, they closed it after I left.
Oh, they did?
Yes, they not only have swing beds at Ivinson now, and that was very difficult for me personally, very difficult. But in fact, I believe that it was the best thing for the hospital at that point. They needed somebody that they didn't have to manage it, and so that happened.
And when was this? So you must have gone to Ivinson in around 89,
90, yeah.
And so how long were you there?
I was there 27 years.
27 years.
Yes.
So I'm trying to do the math on that, and that takes us to 2017.
Actually
2015. So that's a long career.
A very long
at
career.
Ivinson.
And it was time for me to retire. And I thought that at that point I would retire. My husband is older, and we were very interested in travel and those kinds of things.
Yes.
But in fact, what I found out when I retired was that I was still a nurse. I was still a nurse, and so I needed to continue to do something. And so the first thing that occurred was that at that point in time, by the time I retired from Ivinson, Mary Berman was the dean of the School of Nursing. And we had been working together when I worked at the hospital on the Renew program, the Revolutionizing Nursing Education. And I was on those committees. And so I knew Mary well enough that got acquainted with a lot of faculty from additional schools in the state, the associate degree programs. And I was approached by Jennifer Anderson at LCCC to become a clinical instructor for long-term care because they needed people that had nursing home experience. And I had both nursing home and the hospital extended care facility, so skilled nursing. And so I taught for 2 semesters at LCCC. And at that point in time, we had Renew going and had changed the curriculum again. Luckily, I wasn't involved in that, but the curriculum changed, and we went with that. And I taught the first year under the new curriculum that the Renew program put together, and did that at Ivinson for the University of Wyoming School of Nursing.
Okay, so you were working for 2 schools then.
I finished LCCC, worked there 2 semesters, and then my final semester I worked at the University of Wyoming.
Okay. Were these adjunct positions?
They were clinical instructor positions.
Okay.
Clinical instructor.
So not full-time?
Not full-time, and mostly the nursing home part, because I, of course, at that point in time, must have been looked at as somebody who had a lot of knowledge of the long-term care. And you know, that's when the curriculum changed and we looked at basic health and those kinds of things. And so they felt like I had the background for the old and the new, because I've been part of putting the new curriculum together with the concept-based.
So so let's back up to your working at Ivinson.
Okay.
And you decide to do your master's degree. How long did that take you? 2 years?
No, it took me a little more than that. I think at that point in time they gave you 4 years, so I got my master's in 95.
95. How many people graduated with you?
In the master's program, I'd say, oh my You know what sticks in my head is 17, because at that point in time, the master's program had both education, leadership, and what was the third option? There was three.
Was it rural nursing?
I don't think it was rural. I can't remember. I thought there were three ways to do that. Leadership at that point in time, when I graduated with my master's, the University of Nebraska had faculty in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, and did the training for the leadership. And a lot of the education and management portions of my master's in nursing, I got through the business college.
At UW?
At UW.
So,
and with the University of Nebraska.
So there was a collaboration then between UW nursing, business, and then Nebraska.
The University of Nebraska.
Interesting.
Yes.
And so you had to travel.
The University of Nebraska came to the University of Wyoming and did those classes. And that's when, what was going on in the 90s was that all of a sudden we had computers.
Yes.
And so we did lots of things online. I can remember being so annoyed. Here's another craziness. Why in the world did I need to learn how to use a computer and how to do my clinical things and my discussion groups and those kinds of things on the computer? I had to go buy a computer. I had all these things in it. What was wrong with having the post-clinical issues together in a group and face-to-face, and so I can remember fighting that, because, you have a tendency to kind of think, well, why do we have to change this? This seems, because, of course, instead of being an experienced kind of student as an undergraduate, I was an inexperienced computer user as a master's student, and fought that and spent a lot of time learning that process. And so that was very difficult. But you know what? It was another serendipitous thing, because then we started at Ivinson doing things like computerized charting and those kinds of things. And I could see the same distress and difficulty and objections by the nurses who were forced to use computers at that point.
Yes.
And I was in the right place again. And how lucky I was, because I had experienced it myself. And could I say, I hear you? Because I could.
Yes. You were an early adopter, perhaps.
Very much. Very much.
So you did a master's thesis, and who else did you work with at UW for your
my master's? My primary instructor was Betty Ide.
Yes.
And she was also a free thinker. I mean, she really was an interesting nurse. She thought like a bedside nurse, and she taught like a computer whiz.
Oh.
She actually did, and not only that, she was extremely supportive of me personally when I started looking at my thesis was on internal and external locus of control, and I was able to do that and get it published, and that served both she, who was working with those kinds of things, and I, and I had a team to work on my thesis, and it was an amazing experience, an absolutely amazing experience. And I learned so much doing that thesis. In those days, you didn't do your own typing, so I had to write that thesis out and have someone type it and make sure it was proper and pretty. And so Betty helped me through that stuff, and yet was very instrumental in me adopting and using computerized nursing.
Mm-hmm.
In leadership, not so much in bedside nursing, but
Yeah.
in leadership.
Yeah. So you got your master's degree, and that was a pretty early time for nurses to have a graduate degree.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
It was. There weren't very many of them in Wyoming. There's a lot of them now.
There's
And
a lot
you know,
more.
and
Yeah.
I'm so excited that they're looking at that master's level again. That makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I have anything against being a DNP or a PhD in nursing at all.
Yes.
But I believe that education process needs to be available to working, functioning, local Wyoming nurses in leadership positions in the state of Wyoming.
Yes.
And that's so important.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm happy, and I know that's not been an easy transition because it takes so much faculty, and we have difficulty in Wyoming getting, you know, I don't understand it. It's such a beautiful place to live, but but it's hard for people to think about going to a smaller school and not going to Georgetown.
Well, as a manager, you must have struggled with a nurse shortage.
There's always been a nurse shortage in Wyoming.
So what did you do to hire nurses here? Did you focus on the local community? Did you focus on the nursing students coming out of school? Did you go out of state to try to recruit to your positions?
You know, at that point in time, I was at the hospital, and we did just kind of a general ask for nurses. We had a lot of new grads that graduated from the University of Wyoming. The issue with that is that it is not uncommon to hire a nurse and have her leave you within the first or second year after you spent a lot of money and a lot of time and energy educating and orienting and helping them, because their spouse, their whatever.
Yes.
And I can remember when I graduated as an undergraduate, and again when I got my master's, and I would look at those nurses that could go anywhere in the world.
That's right.
And work.
That's right.
And I felt that. And that's why when I was nominated as the Distinguished Alumni for the University of Wyoming School of Nursing, that I used as my, I guess, mantra, bloom where you're planted. Bloom where you're planted. And so that's what I believe that I have done with my nursing career. I've stayed here mostly because my husband and kids were here, and my career has been phenomenal without having to go to work in, you know, some big school, Mayo Clinic or somewhere, you know. Flight nursing, that was big when I graduated. Everybody wanted to be a flight nurse.
Oh yes, well, I think it still is.
Yeah, I know it is. I know it is, and I love it.
So,
but it's offered me the opportunity to stay involved with the School of Nursing, and that's why I've known all those deans of the School of Nursing, because I've been around as long as dirt. You know, that's what I say to people when they say, I've heard about you. I say, well, you know, that's what happens when you're older than dirt. So anyway, that's been an opportunity that I would have never given up. I've loved working with the School of Nursing. I loved working with the Nursing Alumni Association. I loved working with the Friends of Faye Whitney School of Nursing. One other comment about Faye Whitney. You know, as I got my master's, I became acquainted with Mary Berman, and Mary Berman became, when I was out of school, an incredible colleague. And it started because she took care of my mother as a practicing nurse. When she came back to Laramie and started teaching at the University of Wyoming, she also did home care. And she was my mother's nurse. And I can remember, and I told her this at her retirement, that my mother called me after Mary was out to see her the first time, and she said, Jeanine, she said, I have met this nurse. Her name is Mary Berman, and she's as good as a doctor. And I said, Mom, she is a doctor. She's a doctor of nursing. So I worked with Mary the whole time she was at the School of Nursing, and loved that. And I can remember when the association with Faye Whitney started, because I was already embroiled, dedicated to, involved in geriatrics, because I became a certified gerontological nurse pretty close after I got out of school, when probably 4 years. I think you had to have 3 years of experience or something in it. And when Faye Whitney came, she was the first nurse that I worked with that, besides Dawn Tupper, who had gerontology as her background and her mentor and her love. And I was so pleased when Faye Whitney came to the School of Nursing, because I thought, she thinks like I think. We think the same way about, the importance of being, because it's hard to get nurses to apply for and start at the nursing home level, or at home health level, or at hospice level, or whatever, and those are primarily geriatric kinds of places. And so I believe that is one of the greatest gifts that Faye Whitney gave to the School of Nursing, was that she was able to help people know and understand, work with elderly people.
So you were there. I'm assuming there was a ceremony or something when she became the namesake of the School of Nursing.
And that happened so kind of, I don't know, I guess quietly. Faye threw herself into the community here. She worked at the hospital. I have thank you notes that she wrote to me about things that she knew and heard about that happened at Ivinson that I might have been involved with. And she started donating money to the School of Nursing, and I was absolutely delighted when the school was named after her. I thought that was so wonderful, and the money and the support that she's given the School of Nursing, throughout her lifetime was absolutely amazing. Another kind of aside, I have a daughter who lives here in Wyoming. She is the executive director at the Epson Center for Seniors. She took, I think, my love of geriatrics to heart and became the executive director there, and I'm very proud of her. I have another daughter who's a risk manager and a banker down in Colorado, and I'm very proud of both of them. The younger one, who's the risk manager, was going to be a nurse, started to school at the University of Wyoming to be a nurse, and after about 3 classes she came home and said to me, Mom, you didn't tell me that I was going to have to do gross stuff. So she went on to banking, and so we don't have 2 nurses, we only have 1. But Faye Whitney had the Whitney Wellness Center at the Epson Center for Seniors, and several years ago my daughter called me when she first took over, and they were doing a little cleanup at the Epson Center for Seniors, and she found Faye Whitney's white coat and her Sigma pin hanging in the closet in the Whitney Wellness Center.
Really?
So I took the coat, because I was then, by that time, I was part of the Friends of Faye Whitney, and we had a meeting, and I have a picture of Faye and I with her in her lab coat with her Sigma pin, and she, of course, had a very nice Sigma pin with jewels in it. I just have a plain one.
Me too.
But we had them together, and I cherish that picture, because she gave money to the Epson Center for Seniors for the Whitney Wellness Center.
I would love to see that picture, actually, and have a copy of it done. But what happened to the coat?
Well, we put it on her and she took it home.
So
I don't know.
So her family has it.
And it
That's
said, Faye Whitney, and it was, embroidered on her pocket. And we left the signet pin right on that. But I have that picture. I'll find it for you.
I would love that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you served at Ivinson, and then you retired. You taught at LCCC and UW. What then?
Well,
because you're still active, and this is still many years ago.
Yes, it is. I retired in 2015 from Ivinson, 2017 or 18 from UW, and when Mary Berman retired as dean, she called me, and I went to see her, and she said, Jeannie, I was serving on the Wyoming Center for Nursing board that was housed at UW through the foundation.
Yes.
And she said, here's what's happening at the University of Wyoming. Funding is becoming more and more difficult in our state, and we need to make sure that the Wyoming Center for Nursing survives. And it is my belief that the only way that that's going to happen is if you're freestanding. So, in 2020, Mary Behrens from Casper and I put together our money, and we started a not-for-profit that is now the Wyoming Center for Nursing. And we initially said, how do you start a not-for-profit organization? And we talked to a lot of people. They said, oh, you need to hire somebody to help you. And I said, and how much is that going to cost? And they said, oh, probably under $5,000. I said, we have a bank account of $0. We cannot pay $5,000. So I sat down, Mary Barron sat down, we figured out how to apply for it as a not-for-profit. We put our own money in the first 3 or 4 years. We began by getting a grant through AARP to do a program. By that time, what happened was COVID. We were COVID right in the middle of this. We had to struggle with COVID. And the School of Nursing called and they said, we don't know what we're going to do. The students can't get clinical rotations. They won't let them in the hospital. They won't let them in the local nursing home. They won't let them in the assisted livings. What do you think? And I said, what about the Epson Center for Seniors? And so we put together a grant with the Wyoming Community Foundation and worked with the Wyoming Center on Aging, and we set up clinicals during COVID where the students at the University of Wyoming, the undergraduate students, taught elders how to use their cell phones and tablets. And we got a grant, a $50,000 grant, to educate those students. And what we did was we used the basic nursing programs that they were doing with where they were learning about the disabilities, so to speak, of people that are elderly and using computers, not having good fingerprints, not being able to see very well, not being able to hear very well, not being able to understand using a computer. And again, there I was. I said, I know how this feels. I was there once. And so I was in the right place. We put that together. We allowed the Center for Aging at the university to manage the money. And we put together clinical rotations that were using all of the basic concepts for keeping people separated at the Epson Center. And we taught 30 elderly adults how to use their cell phones for health care, for buying groceries, managing appointments, those kinds of things, and learned an incredible amount from those elderly people about what using a computer means to somebody who's 65, 75, 85 years old.
Yes.
And I can tell you that what I learned was that they could communicate with their past and their future with things other than health care. By one of the stories that I love to tell was that there is a elder in our community who's from France and who taught high school here in Laramie for years, and who signed up and attended the class. And the most meaningful thing that she wrote on her evaluation was that the student showed her how to use Google Maps, and she could walk up and down the street in the little community in France that she'll never be able to visit again and see that it hasn't changed at all, that it's still there.
Yeah.
And those are the kinds of things that are so meaningful when you're able to be part of that kind of an experience.
Absolutely.
For a person. Unbelievable. So that gave us our first bit of money. That then allowed me to get involved with the Forum of National Workforce Centers, and they invited me to do a poster presentation of that program at the Bellagio in Las Vegas, and I went there and got involved in that educational process, and we're now part of the National Forum of State Workforce Centers. And when we started, only about half the states in the United States belonged as workforce centers, and now there's only about 4 that are not members.
Wow.
In that length of time.
All right.
So it's
This is
just
great.
amazing. So that's what I do right now. We plan Cara Beach from the Wyoming Nurses Association is also our office manager, because that became way too complicated for I to do the nursing part. The business, I need a Cara Beach.
We all do. I think we just all do.
There you go. And so her and I are going to travel to Philadelphia in June.
Oh, nice.
And one of the things that I had the opportunity to do with WNA was that I was the person that helped with the giving honor to members that are nominated for awards at WNA.
Yes.
And I have that as a gift. I love to honor other nurses as well. I enjoy some of the honors that I've had, and I know that all nurses enjoy that. And so I'm part of a national committee to honor nurses at the National Forum. So that's something that I've moved forward as well. So it's been a wonderful career that I've had. And people say, well, when are you going to retire? And I used to say, when I worked at the hospital, that I would probably have a walker and would be walking up and down the halls with my patients. Well, I finally saw that I could retire from clinical nursing, but I can't see me retiring from the Center for Nursing and Leadership Nursing. I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that. I'll probably drop. I might need a walker to walk up and down, I guess, my front room, because I work from home these days.
So as the oldest member, the longest member, not the oldest, I'm sure, but the longest for WNA, why do you stay engaged in organizations like WNA or even Sigma?
I'll tell you. I think that what young people today, young nurses today, don't realize is the value of those organizations. Yeah. The Wyoming Center for Nursing and ANA offers me the knowledge that I know what standards of practice are. I know what ethical dilemmas are. I've learned how to interact with national leaders.
Yeah.
I've been in a room with presidents. I can't tell you how amazing the Wyoming Center or the Wyoming Nurses Association and the ANA have been. You know, there are things that I can't realize through WNA that I can realize through Sigma. You know, the reason I belong to Sigma and stay involved in Sigma is that they value education and scholarship in a way that no other organization does. And so when I need a scholarship fix, I can think back to being the president of Sigma back in the day, meeting nursing theorists, meeting nurses from all over the world that were just amazing scholastic masters, absolutely masters. So you can't get that necessarily from WNA. It's a different organization.
Yeah.
And the Center for Nursing is the same way. You know, I believe that the reason that I am continuing with the Wyoming Center for Nursing is that I believe that nurses need additional education. We should never stop learning.
No,
we always need to learn. And in this day and age, with the way the finances are in the world, there is no way that hospitals and employers of all kinds are going to send people to national meetings. And you know, I have a computer upstairs. I use it every single day. I Zoom until some days my backside is flat. I Zoom all the time. But there is nothing like a national meeting to reinvigorate yourself and understand. You know, the thing that I've learned from the Center for Nursing is that Wyoming, with less than 500,000 people, have the exact same issues as the state of California, the state of New York. We all have rural areas that are suffering. We have frontier areas where people are not getting care. We have all these things. And if we don't do something about it, nobody else is going to. And that's the difference and why I stay involved. Because they all have a reason, and I need to pay them back for all of the gifts that I've received as a nurse in my career.
Jeannie, is there anything else that you want to add?
I'm trying to think if there's anything that you haven't asked me about. I guess a fun thing, history-wise, is that I believe that my class of nursing in 1981 was the last time they wore a hat. I believe that
I've heard a debate on this.
Yeah, I had a hat. Not even all of the class bought into the hats. I did. There were about 8 or 10 of us out of the 30 or 40 people that had a hat. So that was a change. I can remember my first educational experience at St. Luke's Hospital in Denver. We wore pennies that were long and white stockings and white shoes, and you had to be starched and look nice. I went through the era where clothes didn't make the man in nursing, and we thought that we needed to wear scrubs or white jackets, and now I see things going back to we need a little more decorum in terms of the way we look and dress, because things have gotten a little casual in my career. So I think that's important. I've watched nurses that have debated many of these things forever, and I believe that one of the most important things that I see in nursing is that we need higher education and more education and more experiences so that nurses are not known for saying they're asking too much of me, but rather, what can I do? And I believe that, you know, I hear that sometimes, especially during COVID. I heard a lot of, I can't believe how badly we were treated. And that we've got to come out of that era and into, yes, we're the most honored profession. You know, I think that's so important. Instead of, you know, what are we going to do when people say, I need to balance my life, and nobody wants to do weekends or nights or holidays?
Exactly.
You know, and that concerns me, and I'd like to, I know that when the pendulum swings, it goes back and forth, but we've got to come to a place where, yeah, there's ways that we can manage that. I think we need to go from, you know, when we started, we were doing team nursing, then everybody took care of their own patients, and now we're looking at team nursing again. And I just think that the longer we live, the longer we practice, the more we learn about the way things used to be and the way that they're going back somewhatly to some of those used to be's.
For the better.
Yes, I think it's a balance, you know. It's somewhere in between one extreme and the other.
Yeah.
It absolutely is.
Thank you for speaking with me today. Thank you for telling your stories.
Thank you for asking. It's been an excellent experience to look back on all of it and figure out what matters. And you know what really matters is that I have 2 or 3 patients that I can remember that said things to me that I will carry to my grave because of experiences that I had and the education that I was afforded.
Thank you, Jeannie.